Hello workers, I'm back. I was talking in my last segment a little about Marx because today is the anniversary of the publication of the much maligned but equally much adored Communist Manifesto, and I wanted to expand a little bit on it to explain how it is possible that I consider myself a Marxist on the one hand, while also having serious issues with the solutions that Marx proposes. So first of all, what I agree with. His diagnosis of the ills of capitalism is impeccable. He divides us all into bourgeoisie and workers, and I think it's instinctive for people like us, you and me, to say, well, where do I fit into Marx's analysis? And to instinctively say that because we're middle class, I assume, that we are part of the bourgeoisie. But that's actually wrong, because Marx specifically says that the capitalists, the businessmen, have taken the respected, hallowed professions like lawyers, such as myself, doctors and teachers, and turned them into glorified paid laborers as well. So when I was working as a banking lawyer at two of the biggest law firms in the world, it's hard to see a distinction between a factory worker and myself in the sense that I was working until 1 a.m. every night, sometimes 3, 4 a.m., sometimes not even going home to sleep. Sure, I was paid more than your average factory worker, but ultimately I was simply another guy selling his own labor and not having access to the means of production. Conceptually, we were on the same side of Marx's framework. The idea of alienation was also very relevant, because when I was doing due diligence or some large legal project, I too was only working on one clause or one tiny part of it, and it was sometimes very hard to keep that bigger picture view that I needed to be able to feel like what I was doing was worthwhile. So that distance from the meaning, but also doing the same thing over and over and over and over again, is what alienation is all about. I understood that perfectly. Also, there's no need for me to point out how Marx's idea that capitalism is beset continuously by cyclical crisis is accurate. We've seen it throughout our lives many, many times. And also how capitalism takes over our moral values, making us pursue things that really have no intrinsic value. Everything is about money, everything is about status. This is a brilliant analysis, but his cure is all wrong. I mean, even my own personal utopia does have free public education for everyone. That's like a line in the sand. It's also got centralized services, transport, health service, all that free, all government owned. But no property, no possessions? I mean, yeah, sure, we all love the John Lennon song, but who the fuck are we kidding? This is simply not natural. Without possessions, without property, without some element of competition, what motivates us? This comes down to a fundamental ideological conflict between those who agree with Rousseau, the French philosopher, who said that if you remove society and you remove property, we'll all just return to a state of nature and we'll love each other and hug each other and get along fine. And people like the British philosopher Hobbes, who says that without the state to regulate us, we're just savages, we're no better than the animals and the wolves, which I think history shows us is the case. You go back to prehistoric times, you're less likely to have a hug fest with all your fellow men than to club each other to death so you can rape each other's wives. Finally, oppression. Marx sees all of history as a struggle between oppressors and the oppressed. And I think that although this is an interesting historical analysis, that's not all history is. There is so much history that has nothing to do with oppression. Second, not all life is history. You going to buy cereal, your kid shitting in its diapers, that's not history. Where's the struggle between oppressor and oppressed there? There simply isn't. And that dogmatic approach to Marxist doctrine and seeing oppressor and oppressed in every interaction leads to some of today's more nonsensical beliefs, such as some extreme forms of intersectionalism, or the belief that wearing a sombrero at a party is oppressive, or that me going nee 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 anytime my Chinese friend Anna says something particularly Chinese is me oppressing her. It's not. It's just me being a dick. Carl, I love you, man, but sometimes things really are that simple.